Hey everyone, I'm Jenny Smith, former NFL cheerleader and founder of Built for the Poms. I can't.
No.
Why do we do this? I can't wait for you to join our squad and begin this journey of becoming Built for the Poms.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Built for the Poms Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joe Roscoe, and so grateful that y'all are back. If you've been joining us the past 2 episodes, here we are, episode 3. Really excited to kick this off. Just want to remind you all, if you want to try a free trial of Built for the Poms, you can go to www.builtforthepoms.com. And you can try yourself a free trial where we help aspiring cheerleaders who are hoping to make it to the pro cheer space. Perhaps you're in the pro cheer space, or maybe you just love cheerleading and you'd love to train like one. We are facilitating all things fitness on an online app where you can interact with your own one-on-one coach. So check us out, builtforthepoms.com. Give us a follow on the gram at builtforthepoms. We're on YouTube. You can also watch this podcast. Perhaps you're watching right now. Or if you're on anywhere that you're listening to your podcast, please rate, subscribe, leave a comment. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, we're going to bring on our co-host, founder of Built for the Poms, boss lady herself, Jenny Smith. Hey, Jenny. What's going on? Good to see you.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Because my Bluetooth just stopped working. So I think if you can hear me, then we're good.
We can hear you. You sound great. You look great. Happy Tuesday night. Let's get into our episode today. And why don't you help us with introing our guest?
Yeah, let's do it. A little hiccup there with my headphones, but we're doing okay. I'm really excited about the guest tonight. I feel like I'm going to say that every week. I'm really excited. But this person is like a pro when it comes to pro cheer in every area, on every level. Her journey of being a professional cheerleader was 10 years long. So she's been on, I don't even know how many different teams. I'll let her tell you guys all of that. But she is one of my best friends. She was my roommate whenever we lived in Florida, when we were on Dolphins together. And now she owns her own bakery. So she's just very multifaceted. And I'm so excited to introduce you all to Jamie.
Hey, Jamie Lynn.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Welcome to Built for the Poms Podcast. Thanks so much for being on with us.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So you two know each other, so I'm just going to step aside for a second, just let you all get to chatting.
Yeah, of course. Jamie actually, we lived together for 3 years and she moved back to Texas. Sad. And so we haven't even caught up in a while.
It has. It's been a little bit. I've been really busy working on my bakery. I sell at the farmers markets and I do custom orders in the Austin area right now. So it's been really fun and I'm just trying to stay in shape after not cheering anymore. It's a lot harder.
Girl, same. I feel like I was just thinking about that earlier, how whenever we were cheering, we were practicing just so much and our schedules were so busy. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't just eat pizza every night anymore like I used to.
I know. I feel like that was our diet, was pizza and leftover cake from me when we were
Oh my
on
gosh,
Dolphins.
the leftover cake. And Chick-fil-A. We got to sprinkle in Chick-fil-A every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, when we were on Dolphins, we probably had at least 15 to 20 hours a week of cardio.
There was so much.
That was our job.
The bakery that you worked at. So Jamie, the bakery she worked at when she was here, they would always give her scraps, like the leftover, I say scraps like it's a bad thing. Like
it's not. It's perfectly good.
It just didn't make it on the pretty cake. And there would just be to-go boxes full of these scraps and we would just be eating them in the locker room. Oh, those were the days.
Those were the days. I remember Ashley just texted me a little while ago and was like, I miss your cake at practice.
Oh.
And I'm like, yeah. They'd get mad at me the days that I wouldn't bring any cake in. I was like, I'm sorry.
Literally, we would be like, it would be like a water break, and we'd run to the locker room and like shove cake in our mouth and then go back out and do like 12 kick lines. I don't know how we did that.
No.
Y'all are setting such a good example at the start of this podcast. Let me just tell you.
Live a healthy life. Eat cake every day.
So Jamie, what I'm gathering from this is that, baking, this isn't your first rodeo. Like, you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's funny how it aligns, but I've pretty much been baking 10 years and cheering 10 years. It kind of started at the same time. When I danced for the Dallas Stars, one of my teammates had a birthday, and I was just like, I want to make you a birthday cake. It was my first ever cake. It is so embarrassing to look at the pictures. It was horrible. It barely even stayed intact, like on the way to the restaurant, but everybody loved it. And I had random people at the restaurant coming up to me, asking me for my card. And I'm like, this thing is so ugly, but yeah, sure. And it literally just took off from there. I did it for fun. And then in college, I was just working retail to support myself. And I'm like, why don't I just try and get a job at a bakery? And I went around to all the bakeries in Dallas. Luckily, one of them hired me. And from there, I worked there for 3 years and went from assistant baker to the bakery manager. So I just worked my way up the ladder, learned a lot on the job, just taught myself everything. So I never went to pastry school. It's all pretty much self-taught and work experience.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
her
cool.
cakes, just so you know, like, how normal cakes that are like super elaborate and they look amazing, they usually don't taste that good because they're like, how people can make cakes that look like anything. You can make a cake look like a tennis shoe. Well,
Right.
Jamie does cakes like that look insane, but they also taste really good. And I've never been able to I've never found someone that can like make a cake that looks so great and tastes so great. Jamie's so talented. I don't know how you do it.
Thank you, Jenny.
So it seems like you kind of were figuring it out as you were going along, and you said you climbed the ladder, and you were doing that simultaneously with your cheerleading career. Before we started, you had said that you started in the NBA D League. Can you just start to tell our listeners a little bit about your journey in pro cheer and how that was for you, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads?
Oh yeah, there was plenty of highs and lows. I think I did the math at one point. I attended at least double the amount of auditions than the amount of teams that I made. It's a lot of, you give it your all. Sometimes you don't make it and you just got to get back up, dust yourself off, and come back better the next year. But yeah, my first year, I was cheering at Texas State University on their drill team. And I liked it, but I knew I wanted to do more. And I found out the Austin Toros, NBA D League, they feed into the San Antonio Spurs. They had auditions, and I drove all the way down from San Marcos to Austin for auditions, and I made it, thankfully. And from there, it was really fun. It was eye-opening, and my director on that team was so inspiring. And I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to cheer in the NFL, but I don't think I'm good enough. And she just was like that, really encouraging. She was the one when I made the Dallas Stars, which was the next team I danced for. She actually let me stay with her sister in Dallas, and she drove up to support me. So she was a really good motivator. And if I didn't have her, who knows, I might have only ever danced for this small little NBA D League team. But yeah, so I did that. And then from there, I did 5 different dance auditions that next year. Ended up making the Dallas Stars, and I cheered there for 2 years. Really fun. Got to shoot in my first swimsuit calendar, which that's like one of the perks. It's so fun being girly and being sexy and doing photo shoots. Like that's like an extra perk of being a cheerleader. It's really fun. And then I took 1 year off to graduate college. And then I went back, started at another NBA D League team. I went to the Texas Legends, and that was a hard team to be on. Even though it was in the D League, it was very strict. You had to audition for all the dances. if you weren't good enough, you weren't in them. But it was a really good stepping stone to my next team, which was the Dallas Mavericks. So definitely a feeder team. There were 3 of us who went from the Legends to the Mavericks together. And once again, a really hard team to be on. It was, there might be practices you left crying because you didn't make a single dance that week, or, every week you were trying out. And I remember it was in finals at the end of Mavericks, end of the season. It was like, it ended up being our last game. But at practice, I never made any hip hop routines. I never would. I'd make the jazz routines. I'd make the novelty routines. But hip hop, that just wasn't my style. I'm like the redhead on the team. It didn't really go with me. But finally, we all tried out, and we have to leave the room. And our director calls us in one by one to go to the formations. And she goes, Jamie, go center. And I'm like drinking water, sitting in the back. I'm like, wait, me? And everybody was cheering and like so excited. And I went to center, and I just looked at her, and she goes, you did good. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like greatest moment. But then funny enough, with NBA, a lot of them are hot timeouts. So we're in the tunnel. I'm waiting to do this hip hop dance that I've trained all year for. And sure enough, they cut the timeout. Now it's a hot timeout. So we just go out and do tags. I'm like, I worked so hard all year and I didn't even get to do it. But that was really fun. And then after that, I did the Allen Americans, which is where I met Jenny. And we danced on that team together. So I learned I already knew how to ice skate, I guess, from the Dallas Stars. So I skated again there and cheered there. Once again, another really good director. And she helped me. I told her when I made Allen Americans, I go, I want to dance for the Dolphins. And she's like, okay, I can help you get there. And so I finally saved up enough money. And that next year I went down and Jenny tagged along with me. And we had another teammate. There ended up being like a dozen of us from Texas that all went to Miami that year to go audition. And I mean, I dedicate everything to auditions. Like when I go in, it's not like, oh, I hope I make it. People are like, what are you going to do when you don't make it? And I'm like, or if you don't make it, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to make it. Like I bought a one-way ticket.
All in.
Jenny has seen my ridiculous calendars that I make. I make a countdown calendar of like my workouts and when I have to practice, and I have to kick 5 days a week, and I have to stretch 7 days. And I have this whole ridiculous organized thing that I go through. But I just want to make sure when I go into auditions that I don't regret anything. So
can we press pause and actually go into that? Because I think that a lot of people, myself included, would be curious about that. And I think that's kind of a testament to greatness is preparation. So could you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I've done it the past 3 years for auditioning. And I actually print out on paper a full 30 days before the audition. And for those full 30 days, I'm on a very strict diet that I had a nutritionist help me with. And of course, no alcohol. I'm limiting carbs, high protein, and counting my macros, using an app to calculate all of that. And Jenny knows I don't cheat. For those 30 days, I don't cheat. Like normally we might cheat with pizza and Chick-fil-A, but like those 30 days, there's no cheating. And as far as workout,
I would cheat. Jamie wouldn't cheat. I can't even lie and say that I wouldn't cheat.
Yeah. Do you remember? Okay, the one year, just a little funny story. At that bakery I was working at, they went peanut free. So I took home this giant bag of Reese's, like huge bag of Reese's, because they were like, we can't have it at the bakery anymore. Who wants it? I'm like, me, that's my favorite candy.
So many.
During audition times, I took a big black Sharpie and I was like, do not eat. And I shoved them in the freezer and I was like, we can't eat them until after auditions. But yeah, so very strict diet. And then as far as workouts, trying to think off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 days a week. I had to do 2-a-days. So I do it before work, when I got home. And then I think it was 5 days a week I had to stretch and kick. And so I would I'd usually do eight counts, and I would do that 5 times. And then in between them, I'd sit in both my splits. And then 5 days a week, I had to do 300 abs. So those are like my go-tos. And then beyond that, it was just my workouts could fluctuate, whether I wanted to do strength or cardio, as long as I was hitting those 2-a-days, the abs and the kicks. And then I would have one complete rest day, including not stretching, because I learned on dolphins that you can actually stretch too much. So that was another thing, that I had a complete rest day that I could actually just not do anything. But yeah, that's my calendar, and I would always highlight it and like make sure I did it. So
cool. All right. Well, thanks for giving us the details on that.
yeah.
Okay. So Dolphins, and then were there other teams after that?
No, Dolphins was that. I made it, and then second year I was co-captain, third year I was captain. And at that point I'm like, all right, it is 10 years. I'm the oldest one on the team. It's time to retire. I've like done everything I wanted to do and more. I had no idea when I first auditioned for Dolphins that I would become a captain and that I would even have that opportunity. But, you know, I was able to be a co-captain my second year. And after that, it was like, no, I have to be a captain. Like, I got this far, like, let's finish strong. I want to like end my season on a high for sure.
Wow. What, I guess, what lessons did you learn throughout the 10 years, and, you know, what wisdom could you pass on to someone that, you know, is coming straight maybe off their first year or looking to break into the scene, you know, for the first time?
I think as far as somebody new coming into the pro cheer world, you got to have a thick skin and, you know, be able to take things and bounce back on your own, because you might hear hurtful things, you might hear criticizing things, and you got to be able to uplift yourself. Luckily, like when you're on a team, you have teammates who have your back. And so, you know, you might be having a hard day and it just seems like the director is just criticizing every single thing you do. And it's just, you have those teammates who will back you up and make sure that you're supportive. But before you make a team, it's hard, and you got to, you know, be able to talk yourself out of it and give yourself enough confidence. I know it is so cheesy, but I would straight up talk to myself in the mirror before auditions, because I knew at auditions, like, there's always going to be somebody who's prettier than you, or who's skinnier than you, or has better hair than you, or whatever. There's always going to be somebody that's better you at something. So you have to remember that, like, when you walk out the door on the day of auditions, like, I am the best that I can be right now. I am so hot. I worked 30 days for this abs, and I've been stretching and kicking. My kicks are awesome. So that way, when you go there and you do see those people who are like, wow, that girl's really talented, it's like, well, so am I. And like, you got to have a little bit of confidence behind you, for sure. And then
it's definitely a full package, right? Like, if you're pretty, great, but if you have no presence, then, or no dance ability, then you only check one box, and vice versa for all that. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're always telling our clients, is that, you know, you are your own self and there's no one else like you, and that's your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why it's so hard to just say, don't compare yourself to others. But it's like, you really got to get in your head and not do that. Like, it's so funny, but like every audition that I walked into, I would immediately scope out all the redheads. I'm like, all right, where's my competition? Who are they? And it was funny, when I auditioned for Dolphins my first year, there was one veteran redhead. And so she was in the center of the kick line, and then it was me and then the other rookie redhead. And so I'm like, all right, they're only going to take one of us. It's one of us, me or the other rookie. And we're backstage and they're calling who made it. And they call the other redhead, and I just bust out in tears. And I'm like, I'm not making it. Like, they took their redhead. And so I'm all upset backstage. And sure enough, they still took me, and they actually ended up cutting the veteran that was in between us. So it's just like, you never know. Like, I was doubting myself, and it's just like, heck, I beat out a veteran apparently, you know, like, you never, that's why you can't compare yourself to them. You know, I thought, oh, they're only going to take one redhead. Well, no, they took two. So, yeah, definitely, you got to have that confidence. And
How
then I would.
Sorry to go ahead.
No, I was going to say, with advice for girls who are already in the cheer world, that is such a tongue twister. I've messed up on that like twice now.
Cheer world.
Yeah. I think all of us take it so seriously, as we should, because, you know, every year you have to re-audition, and, you know, they're going to look at your attitude and they're going to look at your behavior. But it's also like, I guess when I'm outside looking in and I'm like, why was I stressing out so much about that one little practice or that one little thing I had to wear, or like these stupid things that I was stressing out about. And looking back on it, I'm like, I should have just been having fun. Where a lot of the time, Jenny knows this, I'm like the most organized, OCD, like everything has to be perfect. So I'm like always hard on myself and always trying to like make it better. And like, I'm just like, even looking back at my last year on Dolphins, I'm like, why didn't I just have fun more? It was my last year. I was captain. I'm like, I should have just enjoyed it. Like, I was so stressed out about everything. So I think that's something that it might be hard to let that sink in. But if you're in this already and you're cheering, like really, really, I think I definitely took in the moments. Like, I still have great memories, but I think I could have just not stressed as much about it. At the end of the day, it is dancing and we love it. And that we're getting paid to do what we love. Like,
yeah. That's funny that you bring that up, because last week, the last episode with Karina, we talked a lot about that and how we were just laughing at how like the silliest little things we thought were like the end of the world.
Yep.
Like, oh my gosh, I didn't get chosen to be in this photo shoot. And we were like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, but look at all these other things I got. And just stressing over like the silliest things. Looking back, like you said, that's a good piece of advice I feel like I would give to anyone that's entering, the pro cheer world. It's like, take it seriously enough, because it is serious. It is a job. But at the end of the day, you gotta have fun and loosen up. I feel like I spent a lot of time stressed about silly things.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, when you try out and you don't make a team, like, yes, it hurts. It sucks. You're going to cry. Like it does. And, it's just, there's always positive out of it though. And, they say when one door shuts, another one opens. And I completely believe that, because there's been plenty of teams that I haven't made, but then I ended up on the Dolphins cheering in Wembley Stadium in London and then dancing at Super Bowl. I think I went to 10 different countries within 3 years with the Dolphins. Like, okay, so what? I didn't make that other team way back in 2010. Like now I'm doing this in 2020.
Yeah.
So
I feel like your story is such a testament to that too. Like, one door closes, another one opens. And I feel like you just kept going and going, and you had this like amazing 10-year experience, and you got to experience all these different teams and all these different sports even. And I just think that's amazing. And I always forget, I feel like at the beginning of this, when I was introducing you, I always forget that we cheered together on Ice right? Angels. It was such a weird, like, I don't know why I always forget that. But Jamie, you did the ice skate thing. I did not. I was not an ice skater.
Yes, I was an ice skater. Thankfully, I had already learned when I danced for the Dallas Stars. And oh man, that was so hard being thrown into that. But my director was very much like, it's okay. Like, as long as you try. I'm like, okay. So my rookie year, I never touched the ice, never skated. But my veteran year, I was skating almost every single game. And those were really fun. I like dancing for hockey because it's so cold. You don't sweat. It's so nice. But it would be so fun because we'd skate during the periods. And then during the intermission, we'd have to like run and change out of our skate pants into our dance shorts, run upstairs, do a dance, come back down, put back on our pants, put back on our ice skates, which ice skates take forever to put back on. And then you have to be ready to go back on the ice. So that was really fun. It was like adrenaline rush, and those were really fun games. But yeah, Allen Americans, I did fall on the ice once. It was very embarrassing. Luckily, not that many people
at an actual game you did?
Yes.
Was it when we were on?
Yeah, it was my second year.
Why don't I remember that?
I don't know. But I mean, it's because not that many people saw, because I actually fell out of the ice rink. Because I was
I think I remember now.
Yeah, I was called the bucket babe. And so I was the one in charge of this big, heavy trash can bucket. And it has these giant wheels on the bottom. And it's the end of the game. So it is filled with so much snow. Like, it's so heavy. And so I go to pick it up and the wheels get caught. So the bucket goes flying everywhere. And I just go straight down. I like face flat down, and like my feet are still in the ice rink. My body's outside of it. I had this huge bruise on my shin. But I like got up and you hear everybody on the 2 stands next to me is just like, oh, and I'm like, I stand up and I look around and I just run into the locker room. I was so embarrassed. And then I was fine. I had a few bruises, but I came back out and I'm like, I'm okay. Just embarrassed.
All good over here. Nothing to see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. So specifically, that was a funny little bout of resiliency, but in a serious sense, going back to like, if you had made a big deal out of not making a team and just quitting, then you wouldn't have went to all those countries and you wouldn't have done the things you did and the Super Bowl experience. And same for you, Jenny. Yours wasn't just a roll out of bed, show up and make it instantly either. Jamie was talking about getting critiques or just like having thick skin. Do you have any things or any times that you remember, or just ways that you went about continuing to move forward and taking the critiques, but yet not letting it just crumble you mentally?
Yeah, I think obviously the main thing is keeping your eye on the end goal. And that's kind of what kept me going, is because throughout all of these auditions, I just had the end goal in mind. I was like, I want to be an NFL cheerleader and I'm going to keep doing what it takes to get there. And I know me and I know my persistence. And so like in the back of my mind, I was like, it's only a matter of time. I just got to keep pushing through. And then also another big thing for me, which I didn't really realize until later on, but throughout, all the years of me being told no, and then I finally made the team, I was approached by a lot of other people and a lot of other girls that had been auditioning and just told me like that I inspired them and that, they've been following my journey and that, they didn't give up on something because of me. And in the moment, I never realized I'm obviously not thinking about other people. I was thinking about myself. I want to make the team. But in hindsight, if I was able to inspire someone else to chase their dreams too, then that makes it even more worth it. And so I think looking back, I didn't realize that I was having an impact on other people as well, by just showing up and by keeping a positive attitude and pressing forward. So I think that was a big thing for me too, that I might have not realized in the time, but now I can kind of carry that with me. And it makes me happy and proud of myself that I handled myself the way that I did and kept pushing forward, because you never know who's watching and who's paying attention. And that's huge for me. And I feel like everyone in that industry, you want to set a good example and be a good role model.
Yeah. Let's get into some of our questions that were sent into our Instagram at Bill for the Poms. Jenny, do you want to just kick us off with one of the questions that someone had for Jamie?
Yeah. So I feel like we've kind of talked about that already. One of the questions was, what are some tips on picking up choreography?
Okay.
So do you want to answer that one, Jamie?
Sure, I can give some. I feel like the best advice and kind of the only way you can get better at choreography is doing it. So as much as dance classes might be expensive, or honestly, that's the only downside of dance classes, I would think. Besides that, it's cardio, it's workout, and you're exercising your brain as well, which is exactly what choreography is. Looking back on it, even on Dolphins over 3 years of learning a routine compared to my rookie year to my veteran year, like you can just pick up choreography so much better just with experience and with doing it for so many times. And I typically am an overnighter. So once I learn a routine, it's hard for me to do it perfect right after it. But if I sleep on it one night, I can come back with it perfect. Unfortunately, sometimes in the professional world, though, it doesn't matter. You might learn a dance the same night and still have to audition it the same night. Doesn't always happen, but there are those rare instances where they're like, okay, let's see who can do this part. And that's just it, whether you can do it that night or not. Also, another thing is just thinking about the next step before it happens. And I am strict. Jenny and I are different on this. I am a strict counter. I count everything. I don't understand when choreographers are like, a boom, ka, pa, and it's shit. And I'm like,
That's me.
and Jenny is like perfect for that. And so we would always help each other out on like, she's like, okay, what count is this on? And I'd come to like, okay, what word is this on?
Yeah.
And so
I would know like the word. I'd be like, like you said, like boom, boom, hit.
yeah. Jenny was good at that. So that's another thing, taking from different choreographers. That was something that I had.
Yeah.
I could do it, but it was harder for me. That is what I struggled with. And so those are the choreographers that I needed to take classes from, because I knew personally, like, that's not what I'm good with. And on teams, you never know what kind of choreography you're going to be thrown. You're usually doing a variety of everything. But yeah, and then thinking about the next step, that if I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do next, it'll completely go out of my head. Like, I feel like muscle memory doesn't happen for a while. So you got to really do it multiple times before that'll kick in and help you.
Yeah.
What would you say, Jenny? Anything different?
No, I definitely agree. And I feel like for me, learning choreography and picking up choreography quickly was always something that I struggled with. And I had to take it home and practice and practice. And I think one of the main things for me, obviously everything you said, like doing it over and over and over, like that's really the best way to learn, take different types of classes. But for me, it was a confidence thing too, because I would get so nervous when I would like learn a dance and have to do it in front, like even with Dolphins our rookie year, or like training camp our rookie year, we'd have to learn a dance and then we'd have to perform it for the coaches to make sure that we know it, to make sure that and even if I knew it, I could have done it perfectly 5 seconds ago, but I would get nervous because I knew that they were watching me and like judging me, and I would just kind of like freeze up and black out sometimes. So for me, it was like a confidence thing. And once I got that level of confidence and kind of just like tricked my brain into just kind of having to snap out of it, that was a big game changer for me, was like having the confidence to be like, I know this, I'm not going to mess up. I just did it. I'm not going to freeze and black out. So that was big for me. But everything that you said was great advice as well.
Love it. Y'all are funny. Boom, boom, gotta.
There's like I saw a TikTok video the other day of these two people, and she was like, boom, boom, kick, kick, cut, cut, woo, got it? And they were like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. I'd be like, no, count me out. I'm just not in this one.
That's so funny. Okay,
So
sorry, go ahead.
No, keep taking it away.
I was going to say another question that we got was about Super Bowl. And I don't really know what they mean by Super Bowl, but I'm going to form it into my own question, because Hard Rock Stadium hosted Super Bowl last year. And so that was so cool for us. I actually was on military tour, which was amazing and such an incredible experience. I was in Guantanamo Bay for the Super Bowl, but that means I didn't get to experience the Super Bowl here since it was home. But Jamie did, and I know that was like the coolest thing ever. So Jamie got to actually dance at the halftime performance. So I'll let you explain that. Your experience there.
Actually, kind of sentimental. I remember Jay and I's rookie year was when they started advertising for the Super Bowl. And in the stadium, they'd have the Super Bowl 2020 like circling the stadium. And I remember looking up at it during games and being like, oh, that'd be so cool to be here when we're doing that. And literally, I was able to do that.
And it happened.
I know it happened. But yeah, it was really neat. That whole week leading up to it, I had appearances every single day. I think I did exactly seven that week leading up. So that was really neat. I got to do a lot of appearances at the Super Bowl experiences, got to meet Roger Goodell, and like really awesome experiences with the whole Super Bowl. And then with that as well, the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, all of us got the opportunity to dance with Shakira during the halftime. And so it was a lot of practices and really long hours. I remember when I made the team my third year, I straight up went to my boss and I was like, go ahead and block off Super Bowl week vacation. Like, I'll work if I can, but I'm not saying no to anything. So I might have gone in the morning and worked like 3 hours, and then that was it. I was doing appearances or practices, but it was really neat. We ended up seeing the Super Bowl performance, I think 7 times. And our last dress rehearsal with J-Lo and with Shakira. It was so cool. I touched J-Lo's hand. It was really exciting.
So jealous.
I did. She went around and she thanked everybody. And me and my other friend on the team, Katie, we like snuck our way up to the front of the stage. Not really snuck. You had to like battle your way. Like you were
throwing bows.
Yes, like you had to fight to get to the front of the stage. But yeah, she reached out and she touched my hand as she thanked us all. So it was really cool. But yeah, it was really fun. We technically danced for Shakira. So we got to, we were wearing cute little red numbers and dance with her. And then for the J-Lo part, we had to run to the side and put on like street clothes, like normal clothes. And then we were all the fans jumping around being like, J-Lo! Yeah. They actually have people choreographed to do that during the Super Bowl.
To jump around and like, woo!
Yes, and it was so funny. So they have, we all had headphones in, and it's during the J-Lo part, and it's our first time seeing her do it. And so we're all at our section, and we're all together, and all of us are just so starstruck because we're actual like professional cheerleaders. We're all like we were just like, yes, straight up, all of us are just like. And meanwhile, we're supposed to be like, like freaking out. And so we hear in our headphones, they were like, Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, we need more energy. And we're like, oh, whoops. We're like, oh, we're supposed to be doing stuff right now. But yeah, it was really neat, really awesome. And then there were also some of us, Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, a group of us that got to dance at the tailgate party before the Super Bowl. So it was a really long day. It was really fun, though. So we got to dance before, and then we did the halftime, and then that was it. So it was a whirlwind of a week, but it was absolutely amazing. Really glad I got to do it and be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, what a cool experience. I know that's the one thing I wish I could have done. Even though I was on a military tour.
I know, which are so amazing.
It was so hard for me because I was like, I'm so happy to be here, but also like I could be at the Super Bowl right now. But so I'll forever be a little jealous, but it's so cool that you had that experience.
It was neat. Very cool.
Well, that sounded like a jam-packed day on the Super Bowl. One of the other questions was, you can kind of reference a more quote unquote normal game day. What are some of the challenges you face on game day, whether that's prepping or in the midst of it, afterwards? Yeah.
I mean, for me, Miami, oh God, that heat. That heat. It is so
not
bad.
melting your makeup off your face, for starters.
It is so horrible. And I mean, my co-captain my last year was cracking up at me because we're supposed to be like prepping our rookies for the first game. And I'm like, it's horrible. You're going to feel like you're going to die. And then she's like, but
no sugarcoating.
And I'm like, I'm just letting them know, like, they need to know how to prep. So I feel like it's funny for most other teams, we really watch what we eat and we want to make sure we look very thin and toned on game days. Where Dolphins, no, we're drinking Pedialyte, Gatorade. I'm eating as many carbs as I can. Like, you are carb loading and hydrating. Where normally it's like, oh, let me not drink as much water and like not eat any carbs before a game day because I want to look really thin. Where no, Dolphins, you have to prep strategically. I remember our first game, I think they said it was like 120. We had 5 girls pass out. And I remember cheering and talking to myself, being like, it's okay. There's only 3 minutes left. You're not going to die. It's okay. It's okay.
You start getting like the full body chills because it's so hot.
Yeah, you're so hot and sweaty that now you're freezing cold. It's really weird. And so I remember we go back to the locker room and there's like a girl on a stretcher getting an IV, and like our director came in and yelled at us and she goes, everybody needs to finish a full bottle of water before you leave the locker room. And that's actually kind of funny for me. Yeah, that was my main thing, was dealing with the heat. And so even during halftime, I would never hang out in the locker room. I would get my bottle of water and I would just lay on the floor in the dance studio because I needed like space and I just needed to like cool down. And I'd usually put my feet up in the air because my feet were dying. And yeah, that was it. Oh, that's another thing. Painful feet. Yeah, usually cheer foot attire is not very pleasant. I learned my trick was just putting icy hot all over my feet, which probably wasn't very good for them, trick. But it would just like numb your feet. So yeah, that was usually, it would kind of help for a little bit.
Icy
I feel like-
hot?
What?
Icy hot?
no.
No way.
Yes. It was actually one of my girlfriends told me to do it just for like heels when she goes out at night. So I was like, why don't I just do it on my feet for game days? So I would get the spray kind and I just spray my feet. And it was funny though, because your feet do go between hot and cold. And then it's like around halftime, they just go numb.
Which is better than the pain that we usually feel. So
Yes, much
might
better.
as well just numb them up.
Jenny, do you remember the one time though we both did it and we came home and we had tile floors and we took off our boots and we went to like walk to our bedrooms and we were both like, oh my God, it's so cold. 'Cause
Yes.
we had the icy hot on them. We like
icy
couldn't
hot on
walk
the bottom of
the
your
floor.
feet is a very weird sensation.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if I really recommend it. Like I told my aunt and she was like, I don't think that's healthy. And I'm like, oh, well.
I was just going to
It
say,
worked for us.
for everyone listening, we are at Built for the Poms not prescribing to this.
We do not endorse this.
Yeah. Anything you
practice.
hear on this podcast episode is opinionated. Please seek advice from your doctor.
Yeah,
We do
exactly.
not recommend this. Although we did it.
But
I feel like when it comes to game day in pro cheer, NFL cheer, any cheer, I feel like people don't realize how much effort goes into it. Like you don't think of it as like being a full-blown sport, or I feel like a lot of people don't think that way. But like game days are intense. Like we out there in the sun dancing, like it is hard. Like I look back sometimes and I'm like, how on earth did we do that?
yeah, I mean, it's like the game is 3 to 4 hours, but it's a 12-hour day for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're up at the crack of dawn and then practice before and then appearances before. And then it's the entire game we're dancing. And even for halftime, it's like, don't you get a break during halftime? And I'm like, about 2 minutes of it, we're just running to get to the locker room.
Sprinting in our heels.
Sprinting in our heels to get to the locker room. And then you have about 5 minutes. I told my rookies this too. I was like, you can either go to the bathroom, retouch up yourself, or eat and drink. I was like, you can't do 2 of those. Like you only have enough time for one of those. Like pick what it is. And then you'd also have to be ready. We would always do kick line right after halftime. So usually we're like in our splits trying to like touch up or eating chicken nuggets like while we're in our splits. Like it was ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. I remember there was times where I wish like I wanted to just stay in my corner and not go to the locker room because like we would have to run to the locker room and then sit there for, like you said, sometimes only 60 seconds and then have to run back out. And I'm like, I don't want to go. I just want to sit here.
It's more work just to run to the locker room and then run back.
Yeah.
Can I just stay here and sit? Like that's all I need.
Yeah. Game day is so much more exhausting than people realize. I'll say that much.
How long is each dance, do you think, and how many, if you could guess an average, are you doing per game?
Well, we do what we call sideline dances. And so we have like probably like around 20 dances that are like 2 8 counts long and we just repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on which song is playing, the captain will just call a dance. And so we pretty much do them nonstop. Anytime there's a timeout, anytime that the game's not actually being played, because when the game's going on, we're standing there watching the game. But anytime out is called or anything like that, we're dancing. And then there's we do end zone dances in between first and second quarter, and then second and third quarter, and then our kick line. So those ones are like the main dances that we do, I would say, for the game that we practice the most for. And those are, what would you say, Jamie? Like maybe a couple minutes?
Yeah, I think those are like 1.5 minutes to 2.
Yeah.
And then pre-game is usually like, 4 minutes?
Yeah, pre-game is
a killer.
the killer.
So pre-game,
Go ahead. And of course, it's the first thing we do at the game. So it's like, let's just kill ourselves now. And
yeah. And it's when there's like hardly anyone showed up to the game yet, because not many people are in their seats before kickoff. Like 10 minutes before kickoff. They're usually trickling in. So we're like, we've put our like blood, sweat, and tears into this
Literally
game performance. And then we get out there and there's like no one in the stands. I'm like, where are you people? You're supposed to be watching us.
Yeah, I feel like it's usually just like our friends and family that are in the stands for pregame.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm always like, Mom, you could just like come down to the front row. No one's going to stop you during pregame. Like, just come down and watch it. But yeah, that one's long because it's like 3 minutes of dancing and then we end with a kick line and then a jump split. So that's always the brutal one there. But yeah, Jenny's right. I mean, we're doing those sidelines like the whole entire time. And then even when you're not dancing, you're still like performing. Like your shoulders got to be back, you're up, and you're smiling, and you always have to be smiling. That was my issue.
That too. Like people don't realize how exhausting it is literally to just stand there with your shoulders back, with a smile on your face, trying not to sweat off your makeup when it's 120 degrees. Like even that's exhausting.
It is. It's a lot of work.
The things we do.
Yep.
All right. Well, next season when I'm watching games on TV, every time they're actually not playing, I'll have like a running stopwatch to accumulate the amount of time you're probably dancing throughout the entire game.
Oh,
there you go. And then I can tell everyone how many minutes I actually danced.
Yeah.
We
were always curious how many calories we burned in a game. And we're like, can't one of us like wear a Fitbit like just once? Like, obviously we couldn't, but I am so curious to know how many calories we burned in a game day.
Probably be like well over 1,000, I would say.
Yeah, I would probably guess 1,500, but I don't know.
We should have put one on our ankles and like inside our boot.
Inside of a boot? Yeah.
Well,
I've seen people
I guess
do
we'll
that.
never know.
I've seen people do that at the gym. I don't know how accurate it is, but
yeah.
I wanted to ask. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you when you were cheering for the Dallas Mavericks, if you have any crazy Mark Cuban stories of him like being on the court, like yelling or doing anything absurd.
Honestly, no. I mean, for the most part, I mean, we never saw Mark Cuban ever. And then at games, we were never just out like in the stadium. We were always in the tunnel waiting for our turn to dance. The only times we might be out in the stands would be fourth quarter, and we'd be up in the stands like in a line just waiting to run out and do a dance. And Mavericks, I have never been so scared like for a year. Like Mavericks is very stressful and very just as a rookie, like everything was new for me, which any team you're on as your rookie year, you're nervous. So when I was in the stands and like, I was not enjoying it. I am like stressing about every single tag that might be called or what the next dance is. Like, I'm not enjoying it. I remember it, even when I was dancing for the Mavericks, it was not until December and that I finally like was out, like we were running out to do a dance and I look up in the stands and I was like, I'm a Dallas Mavericks dancer. Like, it was just like, it finally hit me like in December, like so random at this game. Like it was the first time that I looked into the stands and like appreciated what I was doing. Like, cause I was so nervous all the time. And like, you were expected to be perfect, which I don't know what team doesn't expect perfection, but yeah, it was a special moment for me. I still remember that. Like where Dolphins, I remember Wembley Stadium.
I was just about to say that was that moment for me.
That was that moment for me with Dolphins. I have never heard a louder set of fans, and because they don't have football there, so they are so excited for us. And we're in the tunnels, and they introduced the world famous Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, and like I still get goosebumps every time. Like the crowd was so loud. That was probably one of my best moments on Dolphins for sure.
Yeah. And that was our first game ever because we were rookies, and our very first home game got postponed because it was Hurricane
Irma.
Yep. And so it got pushed back, and Wembley Stadium in London ended up being our very first game ever as Dolphins cheerleaders, and we were just like blown away. The fans there were crazy because, like Jamie said, they don't have football. They don't have NFL there. So like it was the Dolphins versus, I think it was like the Saints, maybe. I don't even remember. But everyone on Regent Street, that's what it's called, right? The street?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everyone on Regent Street, like just crowds and crowds of people wearing like jerseys for every single team. Like
Yep.
they didn't care that it was just the Dolphins versus the Saints or whoever. They were just repping their team. Like it was so cool. Like I've never felt more appreciated
Yep.
and like more famous. I was like, I'm really not that cool, but don't treat me like I'm like keep it coming. No,
I
that
know,
was so cool.
I remember telling my parents, I'm like, we had our own security team. And they were the nicest guys, but there was a set of like 10 or 12 guys that like took us everywhere and they were always around us. And I'm like, I've never felt so cool. I was like,
yeah, I'm like, I need to go to the restroom. They'd be like, okay, like with their little walkie-talkie, like I'm gonna follow you. And they would like wait outside. No one's gonna be here.
Yeah. And I mean, even everybody we passed was just like cheerleaders. Like they just don't see that often in London. So it was quite an awesome first game ever.
Yes, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, this episode has been amazing, Jamie. Thanks for everything that you've shared, just whether it's having fun with Jenny or your wisdom and advice from your career. Jenny, as we go to wrap this up, I'll let you take the reins here and just conclude our conversation with Jamie, whether it's last bit of topics or you all just having your coffee shop goodbyes. So take it away.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited that you were on and that everyone got to hear your story, because I really feel like a lot of people will resonate with that. And I think that they'll take a lot away from that, because you've seen it all. I feel like you've been around and you've experienced it all, and you have just like the best advice and the best stories and the best experiences. So thank you for sharing that with everyone. I'm sure everyone's going to be super appreciative of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Up with you.
I have. I looked it up at one point. I've been to 18 auditions. So I've definitely had like my fair share of yeses and nos. So, I mean, that first year I auditioned for 5 teams before I made one. So I sure have been around the block, been to a few auditions, but yeah. It's all about just bouncing back and coming back with your best self.
Yeah. So everyone follow Jamie, the Jamie Lynn, and then Jamie Lynn's Cakes if you want some cakes.
Yes.
But yeah, follow Jamie, and she'll be another great resource. If you have any questions, I'm sure she would love to answer them. If you want to DM her, she's awesome.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks again, Jamie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, Jenny, episode 3. There it was.
Episode 3.
I really loved what Jamie said about how she talked to herself in the mirror. And even though she said it felt silly, but to me, I don't think it's silly at all, because we constantly are performing self-talk with ourselves. And most of the time it tends to be negative, unfortunately. So I think something like talking in the mirror or just talking to yourself in general in positive regards is important. That self-affirmation when you're walking into an audition or tough rehearsal, or you're just not your best that day. I love that, what she said.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like what you said is so true. Most people subconsciously we don't even realize we're doing it. But like you said, a lot of our like head talk to ourselves is a lot of it's negative, or not even negative, but just like we second guess ourselves or we question things, and it's not usually like words of affirmation and self-love type talk. So I really like that also. And everything that Jamie said with how diligent and how strict she is, like that is not a joke. Like she is that way, which I think is why she's had so much success and such a great professional cheerleading career, because she is very diligent with everything she does. So I'm really glad that she came on today, because I feel like she had a lot of good nuggets of information.
Yeah. 2 more things before we sign off was I like that she said she wishes she had more fun at times. And I think, you've talked about that, and just reminding everyone out there that while the process is hard and while you're super focused, to take that time to take that breath in and just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that
And then
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like, Karina and I, we talked about that on episode 2, and it's so true.
Yeah. And lastly, she said, things suck sometimes and that's okay, but doors open. You just got to keep going and doors will open. So I really love that from Jamie.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like you have to believe that. Like when one door closes, another door opens, and you have to keep an open mind to be able to experience that door that will open for you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes with persistence and not giving up and keeping the end goal in sight.
Yeah. All right. That was episode 3. Jenny, we'll see you again for episode 4.
All right. Awesome. Looking forward to it.
All right. All right, everyone. That was episode 3 of Built for the Poms podcast. Once again, thanks to Jamie and our founder, our boss lady, Jenny Smith, co-host of Built for the Poms. If you want to try a free trial, don't forget to go to builtforthepoms.com. You can find that link in the description of this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, double tap, swipe up, do all the things, share it with your friends. We surely appreciate your support. Until next time, Joe Roscoe here, signing off. Later.
Hey everyone, I'm Jenny Smith, former NFL cheerleader and founder of Built for the Poms. I can't.
No.
Why do we do this? I can't wait for you to join our squad and begin this journey of becoming Built for the Poms.
I'ma keep it going till there ain't none left. Going till there ain't nothing. Keep the flame on max. I'ma keep it going till there ain't none left. Going till there ain't nothing. Keep the flame on max. I'ma keep it going till there ain't none left. Going till there ain't nothing. Keep the flame on max. I'ma keep it